A lock of Elvis Presley's hair, gathered by his personal barber, sold for over $115,000. One of the very first recordings Elvis ever made, a simple acetate disc he paid $4 for, later fetched $300,000 at auction. A white jumpsuit, worn for a historic satellite broadcast, was snapped up for more than $1 million. His personal Martin D18 guitar, used on his earliest hits, commanded a price tag exceeding $1,300,000. Number 7. The Elvis Presley, My Happiness, That's When Your Heartaches Begin. Acetate record. Picture this: Memphis, Tennessee, summer of 1953. An 18-year-old truck driver named Elvis Aaron Presley walks into the Memphis recording service, home of Sun Records. He's got $3.98 plus tax in his pocket money. He intends to spend recording a song, maybe as a gift for his beloved mother, Gladys. The studio, run by the legendary Sam Phillips, has a side business allowing ordinary folks to cut their own records. Elvis chooses two Ink Spot's ballads, My Happiness on the A side and That's When Your Heartaches Begin on the B side. He sings, accompanying himself on guitar. Marion Keister, Phillips' assistant, is reportedly the one who operates the recording lathe, capturing the performance directly onto a 10-inch 78 RPM acetate disc. Acetates are different from commercially pressed vinyl records. They are typically unique or made in extremely small quantities, often for studio playback or evaluation. They are softer, more fragile, and degrade with each play. This specific acetate is one of a kind. There are no known copies. It's the very first time Elvis Presley's voice was ever captured on a recording device. Keisker noted down his name and phone number, adding a comment, "Good ballad singer, hold." Sam Phillips wasn't in the studio that day, but this fragile disc became the seed from which rock and roll royalty would grow. Elvis reportedly took the acetate to his friend Ed Leek's house because the Presley family didn't own a record player at the time he left it there. For decades, the record sat with Leek, a tangible piece of the moment right before the big bang of Elvis's career. Leek kept it safe, preserving not just a disc, but a historical packet. In 2015, this unique acetate, housed in a simple brown paper sleeve, went up for auction. The bidding was intense. It represented the genesis, the pure, unadulterated sound of a young man unaware of the tidal wave of fame about to hit him. The final hammer price, a staggering $300,000. The buyer was revealed to be musician Jack White, known for his own love of analog recording and music history, who planned to reissue the recording for Record Store Day through his Third Man Records label, allowing the world to hear this seminal recording in its purest form. Collectors dream of this acetate, not just for its monetary value, but because it is the starting point. It's ground zero for Elvis Presley's recorded legacy. Holding it would be like holding the spark that lit the fuse of modern popular music. Its fragility causes its preciousness. A single, irreplaceable audio snapshot of raw talent on the verge of exploding onto the world stage. Imagine the feeling, knowing you possess the very first sound recording of the king of rock and roll. Number 6. Elvis Presley's 1957 Lincoln Continental Mark II. Elvis loved cars. Cadillacs, BMWs, Mercedes-Benz's Stutz Zackes. His collection was legendary. But among the flashy fins and custom paint jobs, one vehicle stands out for its elegance, its rarity, and its direct connection to his life at Graceland. The 1957 Lincoln Continental Mark II. The Mark II wasn't just another luxury car, it was one of the most expensive American cars available at the time, hand-built and aimed at the wealthiest clientele. Think Frank Sinatra, Elizabeth Taylor, Nelson Rockefeller. That was the Mark II's crowd. Only around 3,000 were ever made during its short production run, 1956 to 1957, making it exclusive even when new. Elvis purchased his Mark II in Miami in August 1957 while on tour. It was white, embodying the sophisticated style the model was known for. This wasn't a flashy pink Cadillac. This was a statement of refined taste and burgeoning wealth. He brought the car back to Memphis and used it personally. It became a familiar sight around Graceland. Unlike some cars he gave away, this one remained part of his personal fleet for a significant period. There are photos of Elvis with the car, cementing its provenance. What makes this specific Lincoln Mark II exceptionally desirable to collectors? First, its direct ownership by Elvis during a key period when his fame was solidifying. Second, the inherent rarity and prestige of the Mark II model itself. Third, its relatively well-documented history. After Elvis traded it, and reports vary, on the exact date, likely late 50s or early 60s, the car passed through several owners. Its connection to Elvis wasn't always highlighted, allowing it to survive without being overly modified or exploited. Eventually, its history was rediscovered and authenticated. The car underwent restorations over the years, always aiming to preserve its original character while acknowledging its unique past. When examples of Elvis-owned cars come up for auction, they always generate buzz, but the Mark II holds a special place due to its blend of luxury, rarity, and personal use by the king. While auction prices fluctuate, authenticated Elvis cars command significant sums, often hundreds of thousands of dollars. The 57 Mark II, being a rarer model than many Cadillacs he owned and representing a specific aesthetic choice by Elvis, is particularly coveted. Collectors dream of owning this car because it represents Elvis's taste beyond the rock and roll flash. It's a symbol of his arrival into the upper echelons of American society, a luxurious machine he personally drove during his reign. Owning it isn't just owning an Elvis car, it's owning a piece of automotive and cultural history, a hand-built icon chosen by an American icon. Imagine cruising down the highway in the same luxurious cabin where the king himself once sat, listening to the radio. Number 5. Elvis Presley. Handwritten letters or lyrics. In an age before email and instant messaging, personal letters were intimate forms of communication. For Elvis Presley, a man whose life became incredibly public, handwritten documents offer a rare, unfiltered glimpse into his private thoughts, feelings, and even his creative process. That's why authenticated handwritten letters or working lyrics penned by Elvis himself are among the most sought-after collectibles. These items are exceptionally rare. Elvis wasn't a prolific letter writer, especially as his fame grew and his schedule became demanding. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, handled much of his correspondence. Furthermore, songwriting wasn't typically Elvis's domain. He was primarily an interpreter, albeit a revolutionary one. Finding lyrics actually drafted or annotated in his own hand is therefore incredibly uncommon. What kind of handwritten items surface? Sometimes, personal letters to friends, family, or associates. These might reveal personal reflections, plans, or simply everyday thoughts. For instance, letters written during his time in the Army, stationed in Germany, 1958 to 1960, are particularly poignant, showing a young man dealing with fame, distance, and the loss of his mother. A letter written on U.S. Army stationery discussing his life in Germany, hopes for his return, and thanking a friend carries immense personal weight. Other finds might include notes scribbled on hotel stationery, personal messages on greeting cards, or signed documents beyond simple autographs. Even rarer are handwritten working lyrics. While Elvis didn't usually write songs from scratch, he might jot down changes, notes, or reminders related to songs he was recording or performing. Finding a sheet of paper with lyrics to a famous hit, showing revisions or emphasis marks in Elvis's handwriting, is akin to finding treasure. It connects the collector directly to the creation or interpretation of the music itself. Honduration is absolutely critical for these items. Forgeries abound. Reputable auction houses rely on handwriting analysis experts and documented provenance, a clear history of ownership tracing back to Elvis or a close associate, to verify authenticity. The value of these items varies greatly depending on the content, length, recipient, if a letter, historical context, and condition. A simple signed note might be valuable, but a multi-page letter with deep personal content or handwritten lyrics to a major song could reach astronomical prices easily into the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. For example, a 4-page letter Elvis wrote to his friend Alan Hogyears Fortis from Germany in 1958, sold for over $35,000. A letter detailing his spiritual searching could command even more. Collectors dream of these items because they represent a direct, tangible connection to Elvis's mind and heart. An autograph is one thing. A page filled with his own thoughts, written in his own hand, is profoundly personal. It's a way to momentarily bypass the myth and connect with the man. Holding a letter he wrote or lyrics he worked on feels like sharing a private moment, bridging the decades and the immense wall of fame that surrounded him. It's a piece of his soul, committed to paper. Number 4. Elvis Presley's son records 78 RPM. Promotional copies. Before the jumpsuited Vegas spectaculars, before the Hollywood movies, there was Sun Records in Memphis. This is where Elvis Presley, Scotty Moore, and Bill Black fused country blues and gospel into something raw, electrifying, and entirely new, rockabilly. Between 1954 and 1955, Elvis released 5 singles on the Sun label. These records, That's All Right, Good Rockin' Tonight, Milk Cow Blues Boogie, Baby Let's Play House, and Mystery Train are foundational texts of rock and roll. While any original Sun 78 RPM or 45 RPM record in good condition is valuable, the absolute holy grail for many record collectors are the promotional or promo copies. What makes them so special? When Sun Records released a new Elvis single, they pressed a very small number of copies specifically for radio stations and disc jockeys. These were intended to generate airplay and buzz before the record was available for sale to the public. These promo copies often had distinct labels, sometimes stating disc jockey copy, not for sale, or having a different label color scheme than the commercial release. Crucially, They were pressed in minuscule quantities. We're talking perhaps only a few dozen or maybe 100 copies for some releases, compared to the thousands pressed for commercial sale even in those early days. Finding one today, especially in playable condition, is incredibly difficult. These records were working tools for radio stations. They were played heavily, often handled roughly, marked up with cues, and eventually discarded when the song fell off the playlist or the station cleaned house. Surviving copies are exceptionally rare. The most sought after might be the promo 78 RPM version of his very first Sun single. That's All Right, Sun 209. Finding a verifiable DJ copy of this record is a monumental task for even the most dedicated collector. The value of these promo Sun records is immense, driven by their historical significance and extreme rarity. Condition plays a huge role, but even a worn copy can fetch thousands of dollars. A clean, near-mint promo Sun 78 could potentially command tens of thousands or even more, depending on the specific record and the bidding environment. There are subtle variations even among Sun pressings, like the presence or absence of push marks from the stamping process, that hardcore collectors obsess over, further differentiating value. Collectors dream of owning a Sun promo because it represents the untamed energy of Elvis's earliest, most revolutionary recordings in its rarest physical form. These discs were the literal messengers, carrying the first tremors of rock and roll across the airwaves. Owning one is like owning a piece of the original broadcast, a direct link to the moment Elvis first hit the radio and started changing the world. It's not just a record. It's an beckett from the birth of a cultural phenomenon, intended for the ears that would help launch the king. Number 3. Elvis Presley's Martin D18 guitar, used during Sun Records era. Elvis Presley's image is inseparable from the guitar. While he owned and played many throughout his career, few hold the historical weight and collector desirability of the acoustic guitars he used during his formative Sun Records period. Chief among these is a 1942 Martin D18 acoustic guitar that Elvis acquired in 1954. Martin guitars, particularly the D18 and D28 models, are legendary in American music, favored by country folk and bluegrass players for their rich tone and craftsmanship. Elvis purchased his D18 at OK Hawk Piano Comey in Memphis, trading in his Martin 0 to 18. This D18 serial, number 80,278, became his main instrument during the crucial 1954 to 1956 period. This wasn't just a prop. It was the guitar heard on nearly all his groundbreaking Sun recordings. Think, That's All Right, Blue Moon of Kentucky, Good Rockin' Tonight. It was the guitar slung over his shoulder during his electrifying early performances on the Louisiana Rarity radio show and his first television appearances. It's the guitar seen in countless iconic photographs capturing the raw energy of his initial explosion onto the music scene. Elvis, ever the showman, even dented the guitar by adding stick on metal letters spelling out Elvis below the bridge. He later covered the first 4 letters with a leather cover held on by tape, leaving just the S visible for a time, before eventually having the cover encompass the whole name. This D18 was his constant companion on stage and in the studio during the period when he laid the very foundations of his career and rock and roll itself. He used it until sometime in 1956, when he acquired a Martin D28. What happened to the D18? Elvis reportedly traded it back to a Memphis music store. It changed hands a few times before being purchased by a collector who recognized its immense historical significance. The guitar remained largely out of the public eye for decades. Then in 2020, this legendary instrument, bearing the marks of its history, including the ghost outline of the removed Elvis letters, came up for auction. Its provenance was impeccable, supported by photographic evidence and sales records. The Presley estimates were high, but the final result was breathtaking. The 1942 Martin D18. The guitar that Elvis used to strum the first chords of rock and roll revolution sold for an astonishing $1,320,000. This price reflects not only its connection to Elvis, but also its role in the creation of music history. Collectors dream of this guitar because it's arguably the most significant instrument Elvis ever played, tied directly to his most influential period. It's not just wood and wire. It's the vessel through which the sound that changed popular culture first flowed. Owning it would be like owning the pen used to sign the Declaration of Independence, but for rock music. It's a tangible piece of the Big Bang, strummed by the king himself. Number 2. A lock of Elvis Presley's hair. This might seem unusual, even macabre, to some, but among the rarest and most personal Elvis Presley collectibles is authenticated hair belonging to the king himself. It's a type of relic collecting that has historical precedent, think saints royalty, or historical figures, tapping into a deep desire for a physical connection to an idol. Elvis's hair was iconic, the jet black pompadour, the sideburns. It was an integral part of his image and revolutionary style. So, how does one acquire Elvis's hair? The most reputable source is usually through someone who had legitimate access, primarily his personal barber. Homer Gill Gilland was Elvis's hairdresser for over 20 years. He traveled with Elvis, cut his hair at Graceland, on movie sets, and on tour. Over the years, Gillinden saved locks of Elvis's hair after haircuts. He sometimes gave small clippings away to devoted fans or friends. After Elvis's death, Gilliland occasionally sold authenticated portions of his collection. These weren't huge hanks of hair, often just small clippings, sometimes mounted in display cases or alongside photographs and letters of authenticity signed by Gilland himself. The key here is provenance. Hair attributed to Elvis without solid proof, traceable back to a credible source, like Gilliland, is highly suspect. Reputable auction houses will only handle hair with strong documentation. The value of Elvis's hair at auction can be surprisingly high, demonstrating the intense desire for such a personal topic. Small collections of strands have sold for thousands of dollars. In 2002, a larger collection of hair, saved by Gilland, described as a baseball-sized clump, though likely composed of many smaller clippings gathered over time, fetched a remarkable $115,000 at auction. Even single strands, when properly authenticated and presented, can command prices in the hundreds or low thousands. Why? The fascination. For collectors, owning a lock of Elvis's hair is the ultimate personal connection. It's organic material, a part of his physical body. It transcends owning something he touched or wore. It's owning a piece of him. It speaks to the almost mythical status Elvis achieved, where even his hair becomes a treasured relic. It's a tangible biological link to the man, preserved through time. Collectors dream of owning authenticated Elvis hair, because it represents the closest possible physical connection to the king. It's undeniably intimate, a stark reminder of the man behind the legend. While controversial to some, for dedicated collectors, it's a profoundly personal piece of memorabilia, holding the DNA, literally, though extracting viable DNA would be another matter, of arguably the biggest star the world has ever known. It's less about the object itself and more about the person it came from, a tangible link to Elvis Aaron Presley. Number 1. Elvis Presley's Aloha from Hawaii Peacock Jumpsuit. When you picture Elvis Presley in his later career, the image that likely comes to mind is the white jumpsuit flared, legs plunging neckline, elaborate decorations. Of all the spectacular stage costumes created for him by designer Bill Belew, perhaps none is more iconic, more historically significant, or more desired by collectors than the Peacock jumpsuit worn during the landmark Aloha from Hawaii via satellite concert in 1973. This concert was a monumental event. Broadcast live via satellite on January 14, 1973, from the Honolulu International Center, now the Neil S. Blaisdell Center. It reached an estimated audience of over 1 billion people across more than 40 countries. The global reach was unprecedented for a single performer at the time. It was a showcase of Elvis at the peak of his Vegas-era showmanship, a global superstar performing for the world. For this historic occasion, a special costume was needed. Bill Belew and his team designed a stunning white jumpsuit adorned with a massive, intricate American bald eagle embroidered in gold, blue, and red jewels across the chest and back. Initially intended for the show, however, Elvis decided to wear the eagle jumpsuit for the rehearsal show and a few U.S. tour dates after Aloha. For the main satellite broadcast itself, he wore a different, equally spectacular creation, the white peacock jumpsuit. This suit featured a magnificent peacock, its feathers shimmering with blue and gold embroidery and studded with jewels, covering much of the front and fanning out across the back and cape. The peacock motif was repeated down the flared legs. Paired with a matching belt and cape, the outfit was pure spectacle, fit for the king performing for a global audience. The peacock jumpsuit became instantly synonymous with the Aloha concert, one of the defining moments of Elvis's later career. It symbolized his status as Lisfute, a rock and roll pioneer, but a worldwide entertainment phenomenon. The suit itself is a work of art, representing countless hours of skilled craftsmanship, and Belew's signature blend of rock, star flash, and theatrical design. After the concert, the jumpsuit became part of the Elvis Presley estate's collection. However, stage costumes worn by Elvis do occasionally come onto the market, often through auctions handling items originally gifted by Elvis or acquired through associates. While the specific Aloha Peacock jumpsuit remains a centerpiece of the Graceland archives and is unlikely to be sold, other iconic jumpsuits have fetched enormous sums, setting the benchmark for what such an item could be worth. For instance, the white Aztec sundial jumpsuit Elvis wore in 1974 sold for over $700,000. Another significant piece, the aforementioned American Eagle cape designed for Aloha, though worn with a different suit during the actual broadcast, sold separately for a huge price. A full documented stage-worn Elvis jumpsuit from a major concert or event is easily valued in the high six figures or even over $1 million. The Aloha Peacock, due to its connection to the global broadcast event, its stunning beauty, and its symbolic weight, is often cited as the pinnacle. Collectors dream of owning a major Elvis jumpsuit, and the Aloha Peacock represents the ultimate prize. It embodies the power, the glamour, and the worldwide reach of Elvis Presley at his most spectacular. It's more than clothing. It's a symbol of a specific, historic moment in television and music history, worn by the central figure. To own it would be to own the visual embodiment of Elvis's global reign, a dazzling bouquet from a performance seen by a billion eyes. It's the king, crystallized in white gabardine, rhinestones, and embroidered peacock feathers.